gotta become aware that there's people outside of you doing shit. Automatically, it's just like, your body is doing things automatically, automatic functions. You know what I'm saying? Things are just happening. So people outside of you are basically the same thing. They're just automatic AI doing shit, making shit happen. See, I'm also listening to non-dualistic speakers speak on the fact that the chakras ain't real, all that shit is nonsense. But in the same breath, they come out and say that, there's people who empower the fact that they'll say, oh, but there's fluoride in the water. There's fluoride in the water. And then your mind makes that experience real, and then the fluoride can actually hurt you. Because, see, the whole thing is, whatever chemicals are out there, they can only hurt you more so with your belief, but it's not to say that there's not going to be an effect. Because the fact that a lot of people outside of you know about it, there is a possibility of it being detrimental to your own systems, because everybody outside of you is you, right? So in the same breath that's said, if saying the chakra systems are not real and that people put, all their, faith into the chakra systems and meditation and whatnot, well, the same way your mind made real that the fluoride is bad, it can also make real that these chakra systems are your powerful energy centers. At least they're residing within you. They're within you. If you're meditating, you're going within yourself to basically disconnect from what it is that you are making real outside of you to begin with. See, all these things, again, have to be a realization, because this is the thing, again, when I was talking about, having knowledge of everything that we talk about, we're all one and whatnot. You make it a business, but in actuality, it has to be a deep realization, a very big realization, where if you are in certain states of altered states of consciousness, okay, what you see here and the glimpse, because you can't really put too much thought when you're in a certain state, because you come right out. Just like if you're out of body, you think too much or you're not in a balanced, neutral state, you'll pop right back in your body. Which again, people start to, fear that they can't come back in their body. It's harder to stay out. You get what I'm saying? It's harder to stay out. So just a glimpse of the memory of your reality here will feel exactly how it does when you just wake up from a dream. In the dream, it felt very real. You wake up now from that dream, and then you think about that dream, and it just feels like a glimpse. Like if you don't write it down, it just kind of fades away and you forget about that dream. You go about your day. Yet it felt so real in that moment. Okay? So here's where I was going to go into when it came down to what I was talking about in the last video about El Chapo, Pablo, and, the polarities that you play. I'm not telling anybody to do bad things. I'm not telling anybody that if you're going to be bad, be very bad. I mean, that's just something where it's, if it's in you, it's in you. That's just you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not telling you what to do. Nobody can tell you what to do. But, see, here's the whole thing, though. Death, right? You're very... If you're a mafia leader like Pablo or El Chapo and whatnot, they eliminate the competition, right? So they're a big part of their business is basically killing people and exerting their power. And death comes in many ways, though, man. I mean, if let's say, for example, you commit murder and you get locked up. You don't know how to die, or you'll have a very real experience of what hell and death really is, because they killed you off the game. You see, this is the whole thing, though. If you're free and you're a mafia leader and you're a bad guy and you can't exercise death with family members and you get caught, or they will kill you off and they will exercise it for you. So instead of you being free and you died to your family because of the business you're in, which is not conducive to society, no good, no bueno, making that disclaimer, then you will be put in a safe place, such as like a jail cell, okay? And in a jail cell, You cannot see your family. El Chapo has no rights to visitations or anything like that. In fact, he had his family involved in the business, and most of, like I said, his sons are locked up in jail as well. So you are in your body. And one of the things about death is it's not just a death of disconnection, or it's like when you're meditating to some extent, you have a feeling of, it's like an experience of death. Okay, it's like an experience of death where you feel something through your body. And listen, these are my experiences. The whole thing is, when you listen to people's experiences online, don't let them rob you of your experience, and then you'll have expectations. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes this is why knowledge is power, but too much knowledge sometimes tends to it becomes a fucked up experience, because then it's like you'll hold expectations, and when you don't have those expectations, then it's not even spiritual anymore. It's just egotistical. That experience is just something where you come out of body and you'll have a layered experience of what it feels like. Unless you go into, you know, like I said, like I've never done psychedelics, but I don't know, for some reason I feel like people have done psychedelics and they still don't get it. You know, I feel like they still don't get it. And is it because of the fact that it was such a forced experience, where if it was done in a slow, controlled way, where it was just organically happening, and it'll happen to everybody, it's going to, I mean, I would have never in a million years thought I would be in the position I'm in now just 5 or 6 years ago. But it's not to say that the position I'm in now is better than what I was before. It's just a different experience. That's all it is. I was making a shitload of money back then, but I was in a totally different field, where I'm making money now, but it's not in the way that I was before. And I wouldn't be able to do what I was doing before, because I just don't have that kind of passion for it anymore. But these are just my experiences. These are my journals. But one thing to take into account is that money is a currency. It's energy. And it's something you attract. You can attract it based on supply and demand. In the human realm, you would have to know how to control the outcomes, or you would have to be prepared for what's to come from what you're putting out. I'll give you an example. El Chapo was told that if he builds a laboratory in Malaysia, he is going to have big problems with the DEA. He thought he was too big, and he said, no, I don't care. I don't need to listen to these white people no more. I'm going to do what I do. And he opened up the laboratory in Malaysia. This is where it all came crashing down on him, because he decided to start a war with the opposition. But instead of actually going to war, you decided to play the mouse, because you're not really fighting the DEA. You're actually running away. And the moment you start running, you declared your position to what it is that you're going to be playing as in that game. And that's the mouse. Okay? So the cat became the DEA. Now, two countries, I mean, if they're in conflict, one country's not going to run away. They're going to fight. So if you get as strong as a country, you can stand your ground and go down with your ship, or just run. But then the whole thing is, upon this whole thing happening, here's the thing. There's the crazy part. You will be forced, okay, to break the vows that you stood for, which are like no snitching. Like, you know, in the Italian mafia, there's something called Cosa Nostra or something like that. And it's basically an oath of not snitching. They even, it's actually a ritual that happens when they get initiated into being in a higher position. From what I've seen, it's you know, there's some bloodshed where they make a cut, and that blood is drawn into some other symbol. I forgot what exactly it was, but if you look at the some of the videos of Sammy the Bull, he explains certain things about what Cosa Nostra is, how to get initiated, there was like, you know, a little bit of a blood ritual and whatnot. So everything's very spiritual, to be honest with you. But when you get arrested, they make a plea bargain with you. Well, they'll tell you they'll cut your sentence down to a certain amount versus you'd spend life in jail. But the conditions are that you would have to snitch. So it goes against everything you stood for. So they basically not only dismantled your organization, but they spiritually dismantled what you even stood for. They will break your character down by stripping you and changing your look. If that, and actually prevent you from seeing family members or people that you had close ties with. And this is depending on the, the level of criminal you are. If you're a low-level criminal, then of course it's different, but nobody really knows who you are. You don't have this kind of influence. The influence could be where you can bribe people, or it can be where even spiritually, you may rub off on somebody and you give off a frequency. You know what I'm saying? That's why they say, like, let's say if you're poor, they tell you to hang out around places that are, high class and high level. You don't necessarily have to spend money there, but just the fact that you're sitting there, even enjoying a cup of coffee in that environment, you're actually, you're swimming in a pool with these rich people. That energy rubs off on you. So that's why these people either have to get killed off, or they have to lock them up, keep them isolated from society. The same way how you got cancerous cells and viral cells, they're infectious. A consciousness is infectious as well. Or I think when you watch videos, you may watch videos and they may go viral. A certain thought form may have been expressed on camera through an individual in the form of words. And if it somehow got by the algorithm, it may go viral. You hear what I'm saying? But then again, now this system controls what goes viral and what doesn't. See, YouTube is just like the news media. Like they control what your perception of life is by what they feed you and what you depend on them to tell you truth through, and that's the news. So now we look to YouTube as alternative media, but now that's controlled. So where can you get your reliable sources from? See, this whole thing comes down to what did they depend on back then? Because I made the example in the previous video how the news, the phones, the robotics, AI, all these are versions and extensions of you. And the way you see things technologically advancing, if you look at it as a good thing or a bad thing, you're looking at it for what you are. If you see it as a bad thing, then you have to understand that you are actually going into a stage where you're aware that this is going into primitive states and not godly states or more advanced technology. How is it that back then we were able to build certain things that we can't do now with the technology we have? Right? But creation is already created. So when we start to talk about who built them, how did the world get created? Who was here first? If you're God, wouldn't you have been the first one here? If you're God? But there was already people here. There was buildings already here. Pyramids were already built. You're here now. What God are you? See, the God is more of a realization to know that these things were built there by versions and extensions of you. Okay? And you're here now to play in this realm by yourself. You're just interacting with versions and extensions of you. And the family members, the friends and all that you have is basically you, but a more direct mirror of you. You can look up your family members' charts, and you'll see how a lot of that is basically very, very closely related to what you are and why they're even in your life to begin with. What roles do they play? But if you decide to go, let's say, become a drug dealer, a big mafia boss, you're going into the system, right, to acquire riches because a lot of these people came from a very poverty state. But their ambition, their drive, all right, they saw the opportunities, they took it, and it's not conducive, though, to society. But then you can take that same mental state and do it to things that are conducive to society. Because the whole thing is that when you go kill people, you mafia wars, you try to take bigger organizations out, the same way it works in cities and businesses. You try to take out the competition by outshining the other people, maybe bashing the other brands, their credibility. Sometimes you may even have, you may buy Amazon reviews or reviews just about your business. Those things can be bought. The same way, if you're a mafia leader, you could buy influence and show your credibility. There's people who buy followers online. But with money, these mafia people, they pay off the police force. They got people in the police department working for them, in government. They got politicians working for them, right? These are now followers of that individual based on influence. The influence is through currency, the fluid. Currency, all right, is energy. How did they acquire that energy, though? But the energy, it doesn't matter how you acquire it. Everything's neutral. It's backed up by what you put into it. So if you have, again, if you're getting into a certain business and you have a certain mentality behind the business, that's what it's backed up by. If it's backed up by true power, then you would never have to run. Never have to run. And if you die, I mean, that's where you would have to know what positions you play. Would you want to be dead, or would you rather serve time in a prison? However, you may serve time in a prison if you get caught. And if you get caught, it's because you let yourself get caught. I've seen videos online about rats dismantling traps, using certain objects as weapons, which is crazy. And that's a rat. Small brain, and it's crazy. I'll link a video in the description of this video so you can see what I'm talking about. So you're a rat in this rat race, and if you're a rat that's loose and creating havoc, in physicality, this is what we look at as criminals. In the spiritual realm, are people who are waking up, they're not conducive to society, then you get spiritually attacked. We start calling these gang stalkers and whatnot. And this is the thing though. If your credibility is straight, you would never have to worry about anything. How would you have, let's say, creditors coming after you? If you don't pay your credit cards, you know you didn't pay your credit cards. If you borrowed money from people and you don't pay back, then you know you're going to have creditors behind you. If you are doing something and it's spiritual to some extent, I might have to make this in another video to go deep in detail to see how I can structure this, but I hope I'm making sense right now. But you may fall into certain things that are going to make you feel like they're spiritually attacking you to some extent. These could be in the form of thought forms. It could be in the form of certain addictive behaviors. And it could be in the form of just feeling from the gut a certain level of depression, anxiety, and whatnot. You don't feel free or light. You feel weighed down and bogged down. And these are things that happen when you're not able to exercise these things out of you, because it's inevitable that, especially if you're a healer, especially if you're working with energies, you're going to have influences that are going to be attaching to you, tendrils and cords. But it's just like somebody who goes to work. If you're a person who works and you have a dirty job, like you work in the sewers, you know, you're going to go home and take a shower. You're not going to go to bed like that, right? There's people who have to know how to cleanse themselves. If you're going to eat a certain way, you have to know how to cleanse yourself. At least have a knowledge of how chemistry works in the garden, how it works in your body. You don't have to be a doctor. But the same way they went to school to learn medicine, you can actually do this freely in the comfort of your own home by going outside in your garden. And the fact that we have this tool as technology, you can start looking up different books on herbs and whatnot and see how to neutralize certain conditions in the body. There's an herb for everything in the body. Everything. All right? For pain relief, for sleeping better, even for having spiritual experiences. Now, the part of the ego that has to be under control is no different than when you're listening to information. Does it feed your ego or is it feeding your spirit? You may hear videos that talk about the black woman is God, how, you know, the black people this, and then all of a sudden that's kind of making you feel good because you're melanated, and that's feeding your ego. Or you can look at it spiritual and realize that from your point of view, you have a technology that white people don't have, but the white people have a technology that you don't have, right? It's the same way we look at it. The stronger the hero, the stronger the villain. The stronger the villain, the stronger the hero. But you ain't none of these things. You're just the observer. I mean, I was at my friend's house. He showed me this Oculus goggles, and I was so amazed at how this shit works. I put them on, but upon putting it on, everything looked so fucking clear and real that in an instant, I just observed my body, and it actually felt a little glimpse of confusion upon putting on these Oculus goggles. And I was like, whoa. It's like I almost, like, it really, you observe your body getting tricked into thinking that it merged into some reality. But the thing is, how did it get there so quickly? If I felt the shock, if you really pay attention, though, it's the first time I put them on, but the moment I put them on, I was like, oh shit. It's like I felt that shock. So I'm going to cut it here, and I'm going to make more videos. If you like my videos, like them. If you find value in my work, consider donating. That does help me a lot. I'm also going to make a shout out video because I've had people donating to me, and I've been, again, I've got appointments for the cats on June 20th and July 3rd. And that's basically covering about 8 cats. I've got the other 4 that I'm setting up for sometime in the middle of July. And then after that, I'm pretty much done. And I've given a lot of the kitties away, actually, the little kittens. And that's a very, very beautiful thing for me because I'm comfortable they went to good homes. I didn't put them in shelters where they'd be in the possibility of getting euthanized and whatnot. That would probably, and I think I don't know about it. I mean, if I give them there, they do what they do with them. But let's say if I found out that they euthanized them, then I mean, it would probably affect me a little bit. But again, we look at it from different aspects, right? That's how we talk about vegans when they say, oh, but you eating the meat, you didn't kill the meat, but you're paying for people to kill meat, right? It's kind of like one of those things. Even though you didn't directly kill it. I didn't directly kill the cats, but I put them there with the possibility of knowing they may get euthanized or adopted. But that's just those are all possibilities. I didn't control the fact that they reproduced outside. I mean, I could have prevented it if I neutered the cats from the beginning. But in the beginning, they were never even my cats. I was just feeding them. And I was kind of innocent toward the fact of, I didn't know anything that was going to happen up until now. It just happened, So I didn't expect pretty much for this to happen. It was just something that actually happened. But do I regret it? Absolutely fucking not. This has been the fucking most amazing experience ever. The same way I experienced all these plants coming in, I feel like Nick Fury from the Avengers. More or less like I built an army. I've built the feline kingdom. And I've also built the plant kingdom, just like I built the canine kingdom. Okay? I also have the human kingdom. All these things are energies that work for me. And I'm not saying they work for me where I own them. More or less, they work for me the same way I work for them. Because, of course, the animals thrive because I take care for them. That caring energy is actually a feminine energy, just so you know. And this is where you know if you got a feminine energy can be used or misused. What do the animals have a motherly instinct to take care of their kittens and that before they get weaned, right? They just know what to do. For some reason, these things with the plants, I somehow know what to do. People say you got a green thumb, but I just know what to do because it's just an instinct that came out. I'm using a spiritual side to me more than an intellectual side to me. And I'm not using doubt when I do things. If I cut a plant, I'm not in my mind saying, oh, I'm going to potentially ruin this plant. No, I'm saying this plant is going to thrive because I'm cutting it, pruning it rather. Cats, same way. I feed them a raw food diet because I know that upon them being born, if I put a piece of fruit or vegetable on the floor and a piece of meat, I know they're going to go toward the piece of meat. So I'm going to give them what they're designed to eat. I'm not putting the whole morality concept to make them vegan because I'm a vegan. So I push my philosophy even on an animal that has no idea what the fuck I'm doing. Just like us humans don't have an idea about what the fuck they do and why they do it. Why some animals may make certain noises toward you. Why the plants may look a certain way. If they're not thriving, why are they not thriving? Is it necessarily always in the soil, or is it something about you that you didn't do that could have changed the outcome of that plant? If you like my video, like it, and we'll talk soon.